Okay, good morning, everyone. Looks like we have a quorum. As a reminder, please turn off or silence your cell phones. Again, good morning. You are attending the Animal Matters Commission hearings for August 2nd, 2022. The Animal Matters Commission was established and is conducted in accordance with Article 12 of the Anne Arundel County Code. These are administrative hearings, and by nature they are informal, which means you are not hampered by rules of evidence. However, please be aware that you are still testifying under oath. Each party will have their opportunity to state their case. After each party states their case, they will have an opportunity to ask questions of the other party. Please do not interrupt the other party. You will be given ample time to talk. In many cases, we are aware that there is a history. You may briefly tell the commission about the history. However, please focus on the issue at hand. After each case, the commission will have open deliberations. During these deliberations, the public may not participate. If the commissioners have an additional question, you may answer that question. No further information will be heard, and a decision will be rendered. This decision is a recommendation to the chief of police or their representative. The recommendation of the commission will be taken into consideration, and a final decision will be made by the chief of police or their designated representative. If, as a defendant in this case, you are unhappy with the decision of the commission, you may appeal. For citation cases, appeals are made through the District Court of Maryland. For administrative orders, such as potentially dangerous, and vicious orders, appeals may be made through the County Board of Appeals. Mr. Hall, please call the first case.
Thank you, sir. Our case today, we have Animal Care and Control versus Robert Poole for the petition of return for Zoe and Willow, the dogs. All parties who have an interest in this case who wish to testify may now come forward to take the oath. I see we have Officer Bowen in. Let me bring Mr. Poole up. Officer Bowen, if you would, unmute and state your name and assignment for the record.
Officer Bowen, Animal Care and Control.
Thank you kindly. Hang out for just 1 second. We'll get you sworn in a moment. Mr. Poole, as you're coming up, if you would enable your video and audio. There we go. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. And I can hear you, sir. If you would, please state your name and full address for the record.
My name is Robert Poole. Address is 10 Hudson Street, Annapolis, Maryland.
Thank you kindly. And if you would, please both raise your right hand. Do you declare and affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Thank you both kindly. Just a reminder to remain muted until called upon to speak, and we should be good to proceed.
Okay, I believe that we should just refresh.
I'm sorry, before we begin, do we have someone from the Office of Law here? Do we need someone from the Office of Law here? I guess is my question. Oh, there we go. Never mind.
Yeah, looks like he's coming in now.
All right, thanks.
Okay, I believe that just for refresher, this is, we heard the case, we postponed last month, and Officer Bowen, if you just want to restate the issues at hand.
Yes. So just a refresher from last month. On June 8th of this year, I went to 1319 Furnace Road in regards to assisting county police with removing 4 dogs due to the owner, Mr. Poole, having been taken for an eval. According to Police in Crisis on scene, the owner had been living in a small barn on the property since December of 2021. The dogs had been living in the barn with him. I personally witnessed negligible living conditions both inside of the barn and in the outdoor enclosed runs which were attached to the barn. The outdoor runs were muddy and had trash and debris everywhere, and it also reeked of fecal matter. I did not witness any water for any of the dogs inside the runs or within the barn. The inside of the barn where Mr. Poole had been living was also full of trash and smelled even worse of feces and urine. And I did note lots of empty cans of cat food and a mostly empty bag of dog food next to a large bag of cat food, but at least 3 of the dogs at that time did appear to be underweight. And due to the aggression of all the dogs, I had to use a catch pole to safely remove them. Since our last hearing, Mr. Poole did sign over 2 of the dogs. One has since been adopted, and the other we are trying to find a home for.
Officer Bowen, which 2 dogs were signed over?
Titan and Zelda. And Zelda is the one that has been adopted.
Zelda. Is that the one we called Zoe last time?
No,
Zelda
Zoe is a different one.
Okay, so last time we had Zoe, Titan, Willow, and Harley.
So I think Willow and Harley are the names Mr. Poole had given them. We didn't know those names, so on our records, I think Willow is Zelda on our records. Robin should be able to confirm.
Can I speak? Or no?
I might have the names confused, but definitely Titan, and I believe it was Zelda that he signed over.
No, that would have been Titan and Harley.
Okay. Like I said, our names are different on our records, but the female is the one that has been adopted.
Well, I'm scared you signed over the wrong dog.
Yeah,
No,
I'd like
sir.
to get clarification on the dogs.
Yeah,
Rob?
let's take a minute and clarify this issue, please. We need to know the 2 dogs that would be at issue today. And I know there was some different names. Let's take a look at the documentation.
Is
Okay,
Robert? 'Cause Robert-
the document that's in the file has the names Titan and Harley
So
as the animal.
I have the paperwork of the dogs that we do have, which are Zoe and Hilda. Those are the 2 most aggressive ones, and that's what we discussed in the last hearing with Mr. Poole, that it would be in his best interest to sign over the least aggressive ones.
Correct.
Which our name for the female was Zelda, and she has since been adopted. Titan is still here, still looking for a home.
Okay, so I just want to make sure, because my notes from last hearing all reflect the original names I was given. So Harley, what's that dog's name now?
Harley should be the one that we have named as Zelda, because that's the one he signed over, and Titan has always been Titan.
Could you please give a description of dogs that would be named
So
Zelda?
I have the paperwork of Hilda, which is Willow. That one is, they both, Zoe and Willow look almost the exact same. But you signed
no,
over.
That's not them. Willow has a white stripe up her face.
Mr. Poole, just take a second and let us get this straightened out here.
I apologize, but
Identify-
the only
I-
difference between them at the current moment is how they look. Because
Okay.
I don't trust the description of them being less aggressive or more aggressive and them using different names.
I think the situation is a name change. Let's try to get that straightened out before we proceed.
Doesn't animal control usually photographs the dogs, correct?
I'm working on pulling out the photos to share.
Okay, that would be great. Yeah, because I'm really confused as to which dogs.
Yes, we seem to have more names than we have dogs. We have four dogs, and we have a few, maybe 5 or 6 names here. So let's try to get that straightened out and before we proceed.
If it helps, I have the original message from Mr. Poole clarifying which dog was which. I'm posting it in the chat for everyone now.
Okay, can everybody see the dog that we have listed as Zelda?
Yes, though you might want to just grab the bottom right of that screen and then drag it out a little bit.
Okay, Mr. Poole,
Yeah.
that's the dog we had listed as Zelda. That's the dog that's been adopted.
Okay, that is Harley. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Next, I'm gonna go over, I'm gonna show you Titan. This is Titan.
Yeah.
Okay, he's currently available for adoption.
Okay, good.
Okay, so the other 2 dogs that we have them, I don't know if we have pictures of them even in the system. Yeah, no, we don't have pictures of them in the system because they have not been adoptable, but they're your other 2 dogs.
Okay.
Okay, but their names are not Zoe and Willow now?
Correct. Their names are not.
Zoe is Zoe. Willow is Hilda.
Yeah.
Okay. Officer Bowen, now that we're straight on that issue, please continue.
That was all that I had. I think that, like I said, there was just some confusion with the names because when I brought them in, Zoe and Titan had name tags. The other two did not, so that's why we named them. But that was my update and my refresher.
Okay. Thank you very much. Now, Mr. Poole, I believe the issue before us today would then be the return of the remaining 2 dogs. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. Please proceed.
I don't really know what you're trying to say here because I said it all last time. I don't know what.
Okay. I guess an issue that would be very important for us as a commission would be what progress have you made to attain a home or a rental place or any place where you could adequately house yourself and the 2 dogs should we decide to return them. The commission is mainly responsible for the condition of the animals here. So we would need to hear some testimony, hopefully from you, and maybe some concurring testimony that there has been some advancement made toward housing or a dwelling somewhere that can adequately take care of yourself and the two animals you're seeking to return.
Okay. Well, I'm currently at Lighthouse, the homeless shelter in Annapolis. And since I got here, I've been looking for employment as well as housing. I've been to a couple interviews. I have a work interview at one place sometime this week, and SPCA is offering me a job right now, which we're working out the small details right now. But I've pretty much gotten a job, and I've applied for housing a few places, and later today I'm going to get my learner's permit, and I'd done everything in between, like the driving classes and drive hours and all that. So as soon as I get that, I can go for a driving test to get my full license, and then I can get a car and pretty much be set.
Well, that's some positive news. Do you have like a counselor or anyone there that could update us on your status?
Yes. I don't know if he's in right now.
Okay.
If you're willing to wait, I could go try and see if he's here.
I think that might probably be a little of great importance. How long would that take, roughly? We could take a 10-minute break. I don't think we want to take any longer than that, though.
That should probably be good.
Okay. Let's take a 10-minute break. I believe that Mr. Poole's condition, his prognosis, if it were, would probably be important to us today. So with that, let's take about a 10-minute break and allow Mr. Poole to get his counselor or his attending physician, whatever the title might be. We'll learn that later. So let's just take a 10-minute break and allow Mr. Poole to obtain that individual. Thank you. Okay, I think we're waiting on the return of a few people, including our commission. Okay, there's Jennifer. Mr. Poole's back. And we're waiting on Greg and John. There we are. Okay. Okay, we're ready to proceed again. I just want to remind the witnesses that have testified, you're still under oath. And Mr. Poole, give us an update, please.
Unfortunately, he's not here at the moment, and I don't know when he's gonna come in.
Okay, tell us again, again your current condition and prospects that you may have, and a time frame.
Well, I've been applying to as many jobs as possible that I know I can do. 3 have gotten back to me with interviews, and currently SPCA is offering me a job. They're ready to hire me. And I have been looking at apartments to where I can take the dogs and live, as well as I have acquired the emotional support animal papers that would drastically help my availability of places to go. And
Mr. Poole, I'm sorry, back up. You said you have emotional support animal papers. What exactly does that mean? Is that a certificate from a doctor saying that you?
They're letters describing that these animals are necessary for me to go about daily life. Or
Letters from whom?
My psychologist.
Okay.
Therapist.
Any way we can get a copy of that?
Yeah, I apologize. I don't know how to put it.
Do you have a copy of that available for today's hearing?
Yes, I just don't know how to put it in the chat or anything like that.
Do you have it right there with you? Or do you think you could hold it up to the?
My advocate is here.
Okay, great. Phil, you want to swear him in?
Yes, sir. If you would please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Joshua Huff. You want my personal address or work address?
Work address is fine.
10 Hudson Street, Annapolis, Maryland, 21401.
Thank you kindly. And if you would raise your right hand. Do you declare and affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Absolutely.
Thank you kindly.
Yep.
Okay, hold on a second. I think we lost Jennifer. What happened to Jennifer?
It would appear that she is no longer in the webinar. takes a moment to reconnect. She may have had an
Okay.
internet issue.
No problem. We'll wait for Jennifer. And now we lost Greg.
He is still connected, just has his video turned off.
Okay. He's back. Okay, I'm going to give it a minute or two, and hopefully Jennifer will get reconnected. There she is. Okay.
We're gonna move to the office briefly, so I'm gonna put
Okay.
myself on mute. It's gonna take 2 seconds.
Okay. Jennifer, you back? You can hear everything?
Yeah, I can. I don't, my Zoom on my laptop crashed. I had to log in from my phone.
Okay, we're about ready to hear from Mr. Poole's advocate. All right, sir. You can testify.
All right, so I'm just basically speaking on his behalf in terms of what specifically? Just character.
His current condition. He has made a request to have 2 of his dogs returned to him. And
Okay.
as a commission, we are responsible for the conditions of the dog. The reasons why they were taken into custody in the first place was their living conditions were very poor. And he has made a request for the return of 2 of the 4 dogs. And we need to know, should we decide to do that, whether they can be properly cared for or not.
Oh, well, they wouldn't be allowed into shelter. However, if he does have a secondary home for them in person until we get him permanent housing or transition to housing, once he moves into housing, he will have, sufficient space. I will be checking in on him. Another client advocate will be checking in on him. We can always check up on the dogs, and we always make sure that each resident maintains a very specific standard of living conditions. Robert, personally, I'm still getting to know him, but so far I know he's a kind, gentle soul, and I know he cares for his dogs, and I know the dogs care for him in that state. So if living conditions are a worrisome factor, I would say in the long run, it's not a worrisome factor because we will be pretty much by his side, making sure that he's able to maintain a decent quality of life, given all of his circumstances.
And how long do you think that will take to transition him into housing?
So we've got a specific 90-day program. He just started, I do believe, about 2 weeks ago. So within the next few months, we should have him housed.
Okay, so we're talking roughly 90 days or more, maybe?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Hopefully before 90 days. That's the goal.
Yeah. Okay. What, if any, could you tell us his prognosis? Mr. Poole's on record of what we have here is that he was suffering a lot back in February, I believe, of this year, and then I'm sorry.
No problem.
Yeah. Anyway, would there be adequate housing for 2 German Shepherd type of dogs? That would be a big question that we have before us today. You know, I would hate to boil it down to a choice between one or the other that are remaining,
Right.
if that was possible. But, you know, we're just trying to, as a commission here, try to find out all of the angles that we would have to look at and decide when we deliberate.
Right.
And, you know, it's kind of hard when you have to look into the future.
Right.
We're looking at the here and now. Here and now, I would have to ask. Here and now, it's not a possibility, correct?
Correct. Yeah, he wouldn't be able to have the dogs in shelter.
So we're looking at you know, his prognosis of going forward within the next 90 days. How do you feel about that?
Pretty good. Basically, it's just about securing and maintaining, you know, a stable income. And then I would be on the hunt personally to find him housing that offers, you know, space for dogs or allows dogs. We also have a rapid rehousing program that works pretty quickly. And once he secures the income stability, I'm going to toss him into that program. So he'll have a secondary advocate, and she usually is good with finding places within their price range within like a month or two at most. So then it comes down to, you know, him, you know, understanding, you know, if the spot is not precisely what he wants, but it allows him the dogs, then, you know, it's something he'll have to go with.
Okay, one final question that I have here before I can get my head clear on the issues. We currently have the two remaining dogs at the animal control here on Maxwell Fry Road, I believe. If it became an issue that they could no longer be housed there, is there a possibility? Have you been talking to the SPCA that is offering Mr. Poole a job, whether or not they could house him until he could get better, just in case animal control, you know, reached their limit?
Right. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. I'll put that on my list of things to follow up with and see if I can gather more information on that possibility.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is a difficult case before us,
Yeah.
and we would just like to get everything straight before we make a decision today as a commission. Jennifer?
Yeah, I just wanted to, and I apologize because, like I said, I'm on my cell phone now, so I didn't get the counselor's name. But I wanted to ask him if he's ever successfully found housing for someone with two large dogs like this. I mean, is this something you've done before and had experience with, or is this a first time for you?
Yeah, personally, I've only been in this position for about 2.5 months, so I haven't had the time to get to that. I would like this to be a good success story. But there are plenty of other client advocates who have had clients with social animals or emotional support dogs. Not necessarily two large German Shepherd style dogs, but something like at least one. I've seen that happen in my time.
Okay, so this has been done before.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Philip, got your hand up?
Yes, sir. I try not to get involved too much, but I do answer a lot of questions here at the facility for service animals and emotional support animals, which are covered under the Fair Housing Act instead of the Americans with Disabilities Act. I did want to point out a specific section of that, which might be pertinent to the conversation at hand, which is the obligations of housing providers, which essentially they can't deny an individual having an emotional support animal except under certain conditions, one of which being the specific assistance animal in question would pose a direct threat to the health or safety of others, despite any other reasonable accommodations that could eliminate or reduce the threat. And I know that the 2 animals that we have in custody right now are the 2 more aggressive German Shepherds. I didn't want to leave that information out.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. That was very good information to have. Thank you very much. Does anybody else have any questions for this witness or Mr. Poole at all? Officer Bowen, do you have anything else? Okay. I would hope.
On for a second.
Robin. Okay.
Sorry, I was multitasking. I was reaching out to the SPCA just to try and get all the information while we're here. And I don't know if you want to take a brief recess. They did confirm for me that Mr. Poole has been offered a job with him and that he did a working interview with them. But the person I spoke with needs to check with their kennel manager to see if that was discussed at all and to see if housing them would be at all a possibility. So they're supposed to get right back to me on that. And the other thing is, it looks like I may have something else to share with you all so that you can, so we talked last time about the dog's behavior here. I was just sent a video of Zoe and how she's responding to some of the staff here, because I think it's important that you all understand the stress that the animals are under when making your final decision. So hang tight. I'm going to share screen again. I have not watched this video. It was literally just sent to me. Share. Okay, can you guys see kind of a blurry dog at this point?
Yeah.
Yes.
Click play. Guessing you all don't have sound. Do you have sound now?
Yes. Can you restart it?
So Robin, the sound of the video actually comes when you hit share. There's a small checkbox in the bottom left for share system audio. If you're trying to get the audio to come through, you might have to end the share, start the share, and hit the tick box to include audio, and then unmute the video when you go to play it. Zoom doesn't make it straight. Now it's time.
There we go.
Robin, I have a question. It's a little hard to tell just from that video. Is that just a dog that's excited because somebody's standing in front of his kennel and he's barking, because he's happy to see somebody? Or, I mean, because I'm having a hard time seeing, like, if that excited.
May I?
Yes. Officer Bond?
So, yes. So I'm looking at Zoe's paperwork where it's been noted and documented since she was brought in on the 8th of June, her behavior has gone downhill. At the shelter, we really try our best to take care of these dogs, but it's not the best situation for them to be here long term. And it is very stressful for a dog that's already overwhelmed and easily fearful to have to be here for over 2 months. All of her documentation states that she can only be safely handled by one volunteer. None of our staff can safely handle her. I spoke with the girls in the back this morning, and it's to the point that some of them are actually scared of her. That's how aggressive she has become. So that was not her being friendly. That was her trying to hurt someone because, one, she is fearful, and it is overwhelming for them to be here long term.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Does anybody at all have anything else before we close for deliberation? Corporal?
Real quick, what about Willow, the other one, correct? Do we have any updates on her? Good, bad, and different.
Just 1 second. I have her paperwork. So I know Willow is not quite as aggressive, but out of the 4, these 2 are the worst ones. I have all of her paperwork.
Jacqueline, if you don't mind, I'll pop in because I just have some
Yeah, of
notes
course.
handy. So Willow is the one that we have here labeled Hilda. And let's see here. A note says, exited the run with the normal overly excited attempt to push through to get to the other dogs, maintained a very firm hold on a short leash, but she continued to thrash from side to side, trying to reach the other dogs. Once outside, she calmed down and walked without issue to the barnyard. In the barnyard, she was excited and playful, paying attention to me until another dog was placed in the adjacent yard. Hilda, aka Willow, became excited and vocal, focusing entirely on the other dog. Her return through the gallery was similar to the exit, thrashing from side to side towards other dogs. So one of the things that our team members are experiencing with her is we have a dog that doesn't like other dogs in a shelter filled with other dogs. So if you can imagine the stress that places on her. We have her in the quietest room we can, but we've been doing free dogs and cats for several months now because we are so full on cages. All of our small side rooms, they're filled with animals. So we have nowhere that we can safely house either of these dogs in a quieter space to ease their mental status.
Thank you,
Sorry,
Robin.
Robin. Real quick, just so we're clear. So she's animal aggressive, but she's okay with the volunteers that take her out and walk her and the employees there. Is that understandable?
That's what her notes say, yes.
Okay. So at the end of the day, she might also be adoptable. Is that a possibility as long as it's not with other animals? Maybe.
Maybe at the end of the day, both of them could be public safety risks.
Okay.
Especially Zoe, because she is more quote unquote human aggressive.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And are we still waiting for an update from SPCA?
I believe Robin said they were going to get right back to her.
Let me look. It looks like she sent something. Okay. He did not mention his dogs to anyone there. They are planning on having him start working there. I'm just going to re-ask about the dogs.
So while you're waiting for an answer from SPCA, I mean, what's the alternative we're looking at here? I mean, I'm hearing that these dogs really can't stay at animal control long enough to for Mr. Poole to get into his transitional housing and get back on his feet. So, I mean, what are we talking about? Are we talking about euthanizing them if they don't get placed? Are we talking about transferring them somewhere? What's the reality?
I believe, Jennifer, that Robin said that was a possibility before. As you know, that is not something that we, would want to do. We're trying every angle that we possibly can to keep that from happening. However, we can't rule it out if there is no other alternative or reasonable alternative. So it's a possibility.
Yeah, right now we're waiting to see if SPCA is willing or has the capacity to house the 2 animals in the interim period. And then once we hear back from that, we'll be deciding
Right.
about what to do from there.
Right. So while we're waiting on Robin to get back, does anybody have any clarification questions of anyone? This would be the time to do that and get everything out in the open.
Robin would probably be a good person for this question too, but I guess Officer Bowen, has anyone actually seen Mr. Poole interact with these dogs? Other than the day he was picked up? Has he seen them at all?
That would probably be a question for Officer Bowen. Officer Bowen. Okay. Just a second, Robin.
I don't.
The question, Officer Bowen, was, did you observe Mr. Poole interacting with the animals at any time?
No. So, as I stated in my recap, I was called out after he was taken for his eval, so he was not on scene when I arrived.
Okay. So has anybody, to your knowledge, has anybody seen him interact with or handle these dogs?
No, ma'am. In my brief interactions with his half-sisters, they didn't give me any statement on him interacting with them, and I, again, have not seen him interact with the dogs.
Thank you.
Okay.
If I can interject,
Sure.
for most of the time since they've been acquired, I've not been able to interact with them. When they were taken, I was instructed not to wait until animal control was there. And in the hospital, I couldn't really leave, as well as the Harbor House. They don't really do transportation, so I couldn't go and see them. And since I've been here, all I've been trying to do is get to a place where I can get them back.
So, would there be a possibility of Mr. Poole seeing his pups? So maybe one of the officers or people who work there can see if the mannerisms of the dogs changes and if their tempers come down if they see him.
And that would be a question probably for Robin. We're waiting on her to get back
No problem.
with us now. I do appreciate everything that you guys are doing for Mr. Poole, but I do want to say this, that where Mr. Poole is right now, I think the focus is on his well-being and his health.
Absolutely.
That's number one. And that leaves us with the responsibility for the animals, which we're trying to decide today. We're going all out for that right now. As you can see, Mr. Hall is on the phone and Robin is on the phone, and we're waiting to hear back from them at this point before we deliberate, so we can see the big picture and maybe see a little of the future possibilities. Okay, we'll give Robin a little bit more time before we close for deliberation. Does anybody have anything else at all? Okay, with that,
I'm sorry, I have one more thing. Since we have the counselor sitting there now, is there any way he can help Mr. Poole, like maybe use his cell phone to scan the letter from the psychologist? Because I'd like to see that.
Yeah, I can send over any information that you need.
Mr. Poole said that he had a letter from the psychologist designating these animals as emotional support. dogs, or at least describing his need for the emotional support animals. I'd certainly like to see that letter. If you could get that over to Mr. Hall, he could put it up on the screen for us.
They're in an email. I could definitely forward it to Mr. Hall.
Yes, sir. Just
That would
forward it to the same one we've been communicating with.
Is that available, Phil?
Once he sends it to me, yes, sir.
I'm sorry?
Well, once he forwards it to me, yes, sir. He
Oh,
has
okay.
my email. He's about to send me the documents. Once I have them, I can share my screen and pop them up.
Okay. That would be helpful. I don't know if this would be a proper time to close for deliberation while we're waiting on this information. I don't know. Is everybody else satisfied with the information thus far to close for deliberation? I'm asking the rest of the commissioners. So you feel we should wait for the additional information from Robin and Mr. Hall before we close for deliberation, or are you ready now?
I'd certainly like to have all the information before we deliberate.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think we should wait.
Okay. So we'll give it a few minutes. Hopefully.
I sent the documents.
Okay.
So,
Start hitting refresh here. There we go. All right, bear with me 1 second. I think this screen should see people's and then this. Can everybody see that?
Yes, and I have a question. How was this Mr. Poole assessed with this dog if the dog has been with animal control since June 8th? If I'm not mistaken, that letter said that the dog, Mr. Poole, was assessed with Willow on July 15th.
It does.
Mr. Poole, can you hear me?
yeah.
How was this psychologist able to assess you with Willow?
It was a psychologist that I had previous to this incident.
Okay, so there was no assessment on July 15th. Like I said, I'm sorry, I apologize because I'm working off my cell phone right now due to a bad internet connection in my house. But I thought that letter said that that you had been assessed with the dog on July 15th. Is that not correct?
That might not be correct. I don't know why it says July 15th.
Can we bring that up again, Phil?
It, oh, my apologies. It should have been up. There we go.
Yep. And, okay.
Well, I know July 15th was the date that he sent it, but I wasn't assessed with them on July 15th.
That's what the letter says right there, though.
Right.
It also says that the dog has been trained to be a service dog.
Like I mentioned earlier, I do answer a lot of questions here at the agency for service animals and emotional support animals. They're two very separate things covered under two separate federal acts. Service animals are covered under the Americans with Disabilities Act. No one can give certification for a service animal. Agencies, businesses, private citizens are only allowed to ask two questions legally, and that is the animal required due to a disability, and what service is the animal trained to provide? The training explained has to describe an action that the animal takes in response to the disability, whereas the Fair Housing Act is essentially once you have a letter from mental health doctor or psychiatrist, then as long as it doesn't fall under the exemptions, they cannot discriminate and deny you housing that anyone else would be allowed to have. They have to waive fees and accommodate you with changes to their policy. Even if they don't normally allow animals, they would have to, barring those exemptions.
Okay. I also am bothered by the fact that there's no signature on the document as well. So.
I don't know if that bothers me so much because it was an emailed PDF. There's probably an original in the file somewhere. I guess I'm just, Philip, tell me again. Okay, so you can't question the nature of the disability, but you can question the service that the dog provides in response to.
Yes. So as an example, if an individual had a service animal for their blood sugar dropping, diabetes is a disability, and if the animal was trained to alert the individual when their blood sugar was low, either by barking, pawing at them, something of that nature, that would be an action that the animal was trained to perform in response due to the disability. That would qualify as a service animal.
Okay.
If the animal's existence is a boon to your emotional health and not having it would cause trauma or discomfort, then that would be an emotional support animal.
Okay, that was my question. Okay, so it doesn't, in order to be an emotional support animal, it doesn't have to do anything other than be present.
Yes.
Okay, that would, all right. Gotcha. Thank you. That's very helpful.
Okay. Okay. Still waiting on Robin to get back with the little bit of information from SPCA.
I just wanted to let you all know I'm still in communication with them, trying to get an answer.
Okay. I guess that we're okay to close for deliberation at this time. Robin can interrupt us. She has that authority while we're in deliberation to give us the any additional information that we need. So at this time, hearing no further questions or any testimony, now would be the time to raise your hand if there is any further testimony or any questions of the witnesses. Corporal.
Just real quick for Officer Bowen. So we saw the video of Zoe, and I know we talked a little bit about Willow, but I don't know if be a professional opinion, do you think that that dog could be adoptable later on, or no?
As far as Willow goes, I think if she was put into a household that had experience with dog reactivity, yes, because all the notes document her as being able to work with other people. I personally did have to catch Poole all the dogs on scene. They were aggressive at that time, but since she's been here, she has been able to be handled by a couple of people. But coming again from a shelter point of view, it is hard to find those kind of homes. Not that we can't, and we would absolutely try our hardest for these dogs, but it would be a little difficult.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Matthew?
Also, just to clarify, Willow seems to be most likely the most adoptable of the two. She's also the one that was mentioned in the emotional support letter. Is there a letter for Zoe as well, or is it just
there is? They were just identical, but with different names on them. I can pop it up for you.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, anything else? All right, hearing none, seeing none, I believe it would be proper for us to close for our deliberations at this time, keeping in mind that the witnesses can be asked additional questions, and they can answer those questions only if we call upon them while we are deliberating, and anything further may come up. So with that, let's close for deliberations at this time. Okay. Again, we have a rather difficult case in front of us here that you don't see very often. It's not a dog barking incident. It's not a common incident. So we have a lot to sift through, I believe. So let's start. Jennifer, your thoughts?
I'm not sure how many thoughts I can give you until I'd certainly like to hear back from Robin and what SPCA can do. I feel like I'm really struggling here because I, without a doubt, understand that our primary focus needs to be the animals, but there's a human factor here too that I just cannot ignore, and I'm extremely concerned about the impact that our decision here today is going to have on Mr. Poole. So I think it would be helpful to me to know whether or not SPCA can assist. Having said that, though, it seems to me like we're really focusing on Willow here. I didn't see any mention from the psychologist about Zoe, and everything I'm hearing is that Zoe is too aggressive to be handled by anyone. So I'm not sure that we could comfortably return Zoe to Mr. Poole, even if he had housing. I'm just not sure that dog would be safe in the community anywhere. But Willow is my focus right now. So once
I believe there was a duplicate letter assessing Zoe as a support animal as well.
Just a letter for both.
Yeah, the same thing.
Okay. I guess for a period of time I was on my cell phone until my connection was restored.
Yeah, no, they were the same documents. They just had the different dog. Matthew, was that what you were going to observe?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there were two separate letters, and one had the Willow's name, I believe, and one had Zoe's name on it, or if I got the names correct. But there were two different documents there. Okay, here we got a message from Robin. Everybody see that?
Yes, I know Philip already pointed that out to us.
Yeah, and I think that is that would apply. Unfortunately,
To Zoe, at least. I'm comfortable making that. I'm not so comfortable saying that about Willow, which is why I asked if anyone had actually seen Mr. Poole interact with these animals, if the demeanor changes, at least Willow's, when he's around.
yeah, and that bothers me about both of those documents. It was not, neither one was signed, and beyond that, the dates, as you pointed out, Jennifer, was no way that they could be observed, and I do not believe that they've been trained like the document said. Robin, go ahead.
So I just got the response from the SPCA that said that they would be willing to try housing the animals there.
For the animals.
They would be willing to try housing the Zoe and Hilda, aka Willow. Try is the word they used.
Did they give you any stipulations on that? Like what was trying? Like we'll see for 2 days and then we're back to square one, or we'll see for a week, or
I don't have that info yet.
Okay.
If it doesn't,
text at 10:11, so
if it doesn't work out at SPCA, Robin, do they return them back to y'all?
they're not the county's possession. I mean, they are currently in the county's possession, but they don't belong to the county. So
Right.
there wouldn't be a requirement for them to return to us. That would be up to the SPCA and Mr. Poole to find other viable options for them, or if they can't, to consider other options.
So would Mr. Poole be agreeing to sign the dogs over to SPCA, or would we be giving the dogs back to Mr. Poole and SPCA is just his temporary housing? I mean, who would actually have, I guess, I don't even know if there is custody of, I don't mean physical custody, I mean legal custody of the animals while they're at SPCA. Is their outcome then determined by them or Mr. Poole?
I'm asking them if they would want him to sign them over to them or not.
That would have to be, I think that would guide my decision here. I would rather them be SPCA property right now while he is getting treatment, rather than be his property because of their condition, their aggressiveness. I got to roll that around in my head as well, is that, we know that people, love their animals, but, I believe dragging this out may do more harm to Mr. Poole than good. With all the aggressiveness that these animals have, one toward humans and the other one toward other animals. Continuing to keep them in the county facility probably wouldn't end well either.
The SPCA is not a county facility.
Pardon me?
I said the SPCA is not a county facility.
Right.
It would be a separate facility.
That's what I'm saying. To keep them in the county facility, what I'm saying is where animal control, it may not end well. We've been told that before.
Yeah, keeping them animal control is not beneficial for anybody, for Mr. Poole, for the animals,
Right.
for animal control. I think if SPCA would be willing to try to house them, that would be very beneficial. The dogs would be able to interact with Mr. Poole again, and Mr. Poole will also take a bigger role in their decision making.
I agree, Matthew. Very good.
I agree. I just have a question, and maybe this is for Robin or Kern. So legally, what would we be doing? We would be returning the dogs to Mr. Poole's possession with the stipulation that he sign them over to SPCA, or are we turning? I don't know. I just want to figure out what we're doing. Yes, I felt that. Any help?
So as it was described to us originally with these petitions for return, essentially the three decisions that you'll make motions for was the impoundment justified, which we already did last time, and that's fine. The second step is, should the animals be returned into the custody of the owner? And then if not, then we're done. And if so, the third question, what stipulations for return must be met before that happens? So you could say you have to build a 6-foot privacy fence, or you would have to sign them over to the SPCA. Could hypothetically be the recommendation you make, since you guys can make any recommendation that you like.
Okay. I actually like that. I mean, I guess I would feel a lot more comfortable making a decision if anyone had ever seen Mr. Poole interact with these dogs. Because I mean, if he tried to interact with them and he couldn't get them under control, well then, the whole case is a no-brainer. That makes things really easy. But if those dogs settle right down and he's able to handle them well, I'd certainly love to give them a chance. So, no, with Mr. I'm sorry, Robin, I just now saw, okay. So what Robin is saying in the chat is, SPCA would house them, but, Mr. Poole would still be responsible for the costs. So obviously, feeding him, any veterinary care that has lacked. So maybe we need to ask Mr. Poole if he would be able to do that. I mean, if we're signing him over, if we're telling him he has to sign him over to SPCA, then it becomes their responsibility. But if we're not, and they're just going to house them temporarily, then it is Mr. Poole's responsibility.
Would you like me to bring him up for that question?
Yes, that would be great. Thank you.
One moment.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Hey, Mr. Poole.
Jennifer.
I know you've been listening to our deliberation so far.
Yes.
Okay, because we're working really hard to find a solution here that is best for you and your dogs. So if, I guess we're discussing two different options, like whether or not we require that the dogs be signed over to SPCA by you, or whether or not we return them to you and you just agree to temporarily house them in SPCA until your housing comes through. And we're looking at costs here, because no matter where the dogs go from here, somebody has to feed them and maintain their veterinary care and things of that nature. So we're trying to determine what resources you might have to pay for the cost of that care.
Well, I understand my brother is able to help me with financial assistance. Not major, but willing. As well as SPCA, the job there would provide me with discounted pet food and, I believe, pet insurance as well.
Okay. My question I have, would you be willing then to sign over the dogs right now until you can care for them to the SPCA? Our thoughts on that, excuse me, our thoughts on that is, if they're going to hire you, and perhaps you can interact with them there as well. And it could kind of like be a benefit for the animals and yourself. if we can work this out. So the question would be, would you be willing to sign them over to the care of SPCA in the interim period while you're getting treatment and housing?
Well, what would signing them over to the SPCA mean? Like, what would they be able to do?
They would be in their care. I would, and somebody, Robin, you would probably be able to help us out on that. Exactly what they would house them there, and then would Mr. Poole be able to take them to his new apartment, let's say, if they allow dogs from the SPCA?
These are questions the SPCA would have to answer. I understand wanting to have all the information that we can have, but they haven't even had the opportunity to speak with Mr. Poole about this. They've only been speaking with me in the short time that we've been, discussing it. And I would not be comfortable stating what they would or would not do for sure. I know that they are willing to, temporarily give housing them a try. But I'm still waiting to hear from them whether they would want the dogs surrendered to them, which Mr. Poole, if it was surrendered, in my understanding, would mean they were their dogs and they could decide what was right, whether that would be returning them to you when you're in stable housing or not, or if they would want to keep them in your name, and if they have some special agreement because they're temporarily housing them, for you, what would be involved. I just don't have those details. But one thing that I did put in the chat, and since Mr. Poole is back on, I do want to mention is that the other thing is that either way, Mr. Poole is going to have fees associated with their stay here for them to go to the SPCA. While we can certainly arrange for transport because Mr. Poole doesn't have a vehicle or a license. I know he's working on that. We could certainly arrange for transport for them to the SPCA, but in the county code, we have impound fees, we have board fees. These dogs have been here for 54 days, I think, so far, at $5 a day for each dog. So fees add up quickly. They didn't have any prior vaccination history, so they had to get vaccinations upon coming here. I don't believe either dog is spayed. So those things all impact those fees.
They are spayed.
They are spayed. Okay. Do you have proof of that, Mr. Poole?
Not on me, but yes, I do.
Or if you could tell us where it is, where it was done, so that we could contact where it was done, that will certainly help decrease fees.
I believe it was done at Everhart Hospital.
Everhart. Okay.
Veterinary hospital.
And under your name there?
I believe it would have been under Lisa Kraus Poole. That was my mother.
So Mr. Poole, just kind of looking at all of the amounts here, adding it up, it's probably around anywhere from $600 to $800 with the fees. Is that something you'd be able to afford or talk to your brother about?
The math I concluded was around like $430.
So 54 days, I think it's $5 per dog. Is that correct, Robin? Or is it $5 for both of them?
No, $5 per dog. So just in board for 54 days, I get to $540.
Okay. Yeah.
If they're both spayed, the impound fees for each dog would be $25. So that brings us to $590. Mr. Poole, is it correct that they didn't have current rabies vaccinations upon arrival?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay, so that's 20 for each dog. So that gets me to $630. And if he can provide proof that they are spayed, the licensing would be 2 for each. So as of today, we'd be looking at $634. The SPCA said that they could take them tomorrow. So really we should add on another 10, right? So $644.
When would the money need to be get to you?
We would have to be closed out with us before we could transfer the dogs. We don't, unfortunately, have payment plans or anything like that.
Okay. I could probably get the money.
Okay.
Okay, so as a practical matter, what happens here? If he says he can get the money and we order this to happen, and then tomorrow comes and it's time to transfer the dogs and the fee's not paid, then what? Are we back here again?
That would be something that we would have to foresee and put in our recommendation. So once again, we'll close for further deliberation. Unless anybody has any further questions of the witness. Okay. So there we have it. We have a possibility that, not a possibility, but we have the offer that the dogs will be allowed to go to SPCA. There's going to be money involved, and there's going to be some time constraints have to be considered. So, I mean, I'd like to hear other people's thoughts on this. Matthew?
I don't see any other option. It's like SPCA is our only option. It's either that or surrender the dogs, because keeping them in permanent limbo is unfair to everyone. Dogs, Mr. Poole, SPCA, I mean, animal control.
You're correct. Mr. Fuentes?
So I'm standing in for Tom. So I would say everyone else's opinion and more, opinion is more valid than mine, since I'm just stepping in. But based on what I've heard today is, if there is an opportunity to, provide the money, pay the fees, and then transfer them to the SPCA, I would definitely want to go that route better. But if we're not able to do that, and he's not able to pay the fees, then unfortunately, I don't feel comfortable giving the dogs or postponing this longer. So if we have the time to make more, we had more time, that we could decide, but I don't know if we do have the time. So if they're able to pay the fees and transfer, that's the way I would rather go.
Okay. Corporal Wall?
Yeah, did you guys see in the chat from Curran what he said? It would have to be a private agreement between them. We would, okay. So if he can get the money, I'm good with him paying it and getting the dogs over them. But that's going to have to be an agreement between the two of them. It sounds like they're doing it as a kind gesture to house these dogs. So they're going to have to figure out what to do after the fact, right? Because unless that, they're going to have to come back to us. Is that correct?
Well, that will be up to SPCA.
Okay. Yeah. We return them to him if he can pay the fees, and then we get them transferred to SPCA because they said they were kind enough to do that. And I think that's the only option we have unless he surrenders them. So.
Okay, Jennifer?
I mean, I'm obviously in agreement with letting the SPCA take a shot at this. My concern sitting here right now, though, is, $640 is a lot of money for a gentleman who's, in a homeless shelter right now. And I'm concerned with what happens when he can't pay it tomorrow, because I have a hard time saying that because if those dogs don't leave animal control, they're going to be euthanized. So we're essentially saying their life is worth $640. And if he doesn't come up with it overnight, dogs are going to be put down. And that worries me.
Well, I didn't see where it had to be overnight.
But it has to be before they're released, and they're scheduled to be released.
True. So
but every day he stays there, the fee just goes up.
Right. So we're looking at a time frame.
24 hours. That is our time frame.
Well, that's as soon as they can take the dogs. I mean, they'll incur $10 more each day, but if he can have a week, I mean, it's $70 more, but he has a week to come up with the money. Like, it's not like they have to leave the facility tomorrow.
Okay.
SPCA can take them in 2 days, 3 days. That just gives them more time to come up with just a little bit more money.
Or this would be a question, I guess, for Robin or Curran. Would we as a board in our recommendation be allowed to say additional fees would be waived? Okay, here we go. You read my mind. Let's see what that says. Okay.
Well, but it's due to a contested request for postponement by the county, and we were the ones who requested last month's postponement because we felt we didn't have enough information.
Okay, let me absorb this a little bit here.
Oh, you mean the defendant did not contest it?
Waiver of shelter fees. Accrued shelter fees shall be waived by age.
All right, let me ask another question. Mr. Poole can't possibly be the only indigent animal owner out there. Is there some type of public fund or church group or something? I mean, I just, this is one of those instances.
No public fund.
You're penalized for being poor, and it's tough. I think we have a workable solution, at least to try with the SPCA, but I don't know how we guarantee that.
Yeah. Everybody's seeing what Robin is giving us.
Believe me, Robin, I have thought about that, but I don't think ethically as a commission, any of us can volunteer to do that. Or I might have cut the check already myself. But I don't think we, as a commission, we can't do that. I mean, we're sitting in a quasi judicial capacity. I'd certainly love to find some, I can't believe there isn't a fund or something out there to help this gentleman.
What would be a reasonable time frame, do we all think, to allow for this exchange between the county and the SPCA? 2 days, 3 days, a week?
Friday, does that seem reasonable? It's 4 days.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I said Friday. I mean, I would think anybody could exhaust their means within 4 days, right? That's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. They do think. So if we give them, say, hey, you need to get this done by Friday.
That would be reasonable.
And then what happens if it's not done? Does it come back to us, or do the dogs just, they revert to?
Unfortunately, I would probably believe that the assessment of the animals would remain with the county, as it states. If we give them 4 days, we can't waive the fees, the additional fees, which would be what, $20 a day. Okay, another $80, $100. And this, you're right, this is correct. This is a recommendation to the chief of police. Again,
guys, this is important what's in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because our decision doesn't become final today. It's just a recommendation to the chief of police. And I think we've lost sight of that. The number of days would start running from the day he issues the order. I mean, I'm sorry.
Correct. But I believe we've left the defendant, Mr. Poole, in this case, with an urgency to get this transfer done as quickly as possible. And it could be today, tomorrow. It could be by Friday. So, I mean, so what do you all, given that, it's a recommendation to the chief of police, but it's something that they're currently probably acting on due to our deliberation. So, I
Just for
mean,
clarification,
go ahead,
what's the
Matthew.
turnaround time for our recommendation getting to the chief and then her making her decision?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't want to go out on a limb here. Go ahead. It's sent up the chain of command today. And
keep in mind, the chief does not have to agree with us. She can, just because we're
Correct.
saying this is going to happen doesn't mean it's going to happen.
correct. So does she have, she has 15 days to make a decision.
And every one of those days, this gentleman incurs additional fees, correct?
Another $10. Yeah.
Right. They can't be waived. So,
So it's another 150. So Mr. Poole could be looking at 790 total
About
by the time.
about $800 probably.
By the time
Yeah.
this is resolved, assuming the chief of police agrees with our decision.
like I said, I believe we've left him working on it right now.
Okay, I'm not sure we have any other option. It's so.
And he did reply in such a way that he seemed hopeful that he would be able to get it, or his brother would be able to help him out to pay the fee.
Well, I would suggest, given it the 15 days from today.
No, she has 15 days to make the decision.
She has 15
Then
days.
but it was up to us to say, Mr. Poole has, 48 hours, 72 hours, whatever. But that's tacked on to the end of that 15 days if she takes the full 15 days to render her decision.
Right.
But that is, that would be more money.
Right. But but if she makes the decision in 2 days, it might not be.
Right.
I would be inclined to not go maybe any more than 3 or 4 days, because if she made the decision today, that would give him the full 4 days. And if she waited 15, I don't know how you don't want to make it too soon, because if she does render the decision today, you don't want to make it sooner than he can get the money together, but you don't want to make it so far out that when you tack it onto that 15 days, it comes out of his reach.
How about wording it within 4 days from the date of the disposition of the chief of police or their representative? So in other words, if she makes the decision tomorrow, he's got 4 days to comply, or makes a decision on the 15th day, he's got 4 days to comply.
Yeah.
I don't see we has any other option.
I don't think so either, Jennifer. I agree with you. So I'm looking at a solution here where we say that Mr. Poole, the defendant, however you want to word it, will transfer. I'm trying to write this down. It says Mr. Poole will transfer
I don't think we can order him to transfer them to SPCA because we have not heard back from them, and we are now binding a third party. We can't do that.
I think Robin said that they're willing to try.
House the dogs, but they didn't say they were willing to take custody of the dogs. So I don't think we can. Yeah. So I think we can order him to place the dogs in temporary housing at the SPCA, but that's as far as we can go because we have
Okay.
no authority to bind the SPCA.
Mr. Poole will place the 2 dogs. Can we get their names again? And can we, I don't want to bring any humor into it, but there's been a lot of names.
Right. Zoe and Hilda are the official names they're going by now, but you
Okay.
can, you know, in parentheses, we ought to have like Willow after Hilda, just so everybody understands which dogs are. Yep. There we go. Thanks, Roman.
Okay, I'm working on it here. Give me a minute. Trying to get it worded correctly so that everybody can agree. Give me a minute. Okay, what I got so far is Mr. Poole will place the 2 dogs, Zoe and Hilda, for housing at the SPCA within 4 days from the date of notice of the disposition of the commission's recommendation to the chief of police or designee. That's the first sentence. Let me say that again. Mr. Poole will place the 2 dogs, Zoe and Hilda, I hope I got the names right, for housing at SPCA within 4 days from the date of notice of the disposition of the commission's recommendation to the chief of police or designee.
Well, actually, I think the first sentence needs to be, the first question we have to decide is, do the dogs get returned to Mr. Poole? And so we're going to say that the dog should be returned to Mr. Poole with the stipulation that, and then everything you said, Ed, but I don't think it's the date of disposition from us. It's within 4 days of the chief of police, the chief of police's disposition.
That's what I said here.
I thought you said from
the date of the notice of the disposition of the commission's recommendation to the chief of police or designee.
right, not the day we recommend it to the chief, the date
Correct.
the chief makes the
The
decision.
date of notice of the disposition. Okay, I'll switch that around.
Okay,
Disposition
I'm good with that.
of the chief of police or designee to the commission's recommendation. Okay, we'll do it that way. Okay, so you feel that we must return the dogs to Mr. Poole first, with the condition that he places Zoe and Hilda for housing at the SPCA within 4 days of the date of the notice of the chief of police or designee's disposition from the commission's recommendation. Does that
Yeah.
sound better?
Yes. Now I have one more question. Do we have to add anything onto that? Like, you know,
Yes.
like when the SPCA can.
I think we do have to put something in there. That's why I'm kind of wondering about if we give the dogs back to Mr. Poole and then the SPCA situation does not work out, then they are the property of Mr. Poole.
So I think that,
So I don't think that we should give them back to Mr. Poole in our recommendation. First off, I think that they should be placed for housing at the SPCA.
we can't do that. And we don't have the authority to bind the SPCA. They're not here and they're not a party to this case. We don't have the legal authority to do. We can't even make the recommendation. The only thing we can do is determine under this type of petition whether or not those dogs go back to Mr. Poole or they remain with animal control. Those are our only two options.
Well, if that's the case, then we're kind of, if we start this recommendation out with the dogs be returned to Mr. Poole and put our conditions on that, and the SPCA, it doesn't work out, then they get returned to Mr. Poole and we're back to square one.
Well, that's why I asked if we should add, Matthew, I'm sorry.
Well, the SPCA is their, I mean, their experience, they know what they're doing. There will be a whole decision-making process, including Mr. Poole, should they be unable to house them. They might have fosters that are available to them. It's not like, oh, can't house the dogs, take them back. They'll figure something out.
But they won't be theirs to figure something out for is the problem. Mr. Poole will still make the final decision. So I would suggest adding on to that he place the dogs with the SPCA for temporary housing and that he'd be required to follow all of their recommendations, because he's the one who has to make the decisions at the end of the day. We can't tell the SPCA to. Do you understand what I'm saying? The difference?
Yeah.
So we're telling him if SPCA says do X, Y, and Z, by accepting this ruling, he's got to do X, Y, and Z. What we can't do is tell the SPCA,
right,
they're your dogs, you make the decisions.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So we're going to return the dogs to Mr. Poole with the stipulation that he place them for temporary housing with the SPCA and follow all of their recommendations going forward. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah, I'm agreeable to that.
Now, should we cover in our recommendation any possibility that SPCA says no after this, even though Robin talked to him? Like you said, we can't force them to take them.
If the stipulation can't be met, then he doesn't regain.
And they remain with the county, and the county will decide further disposition of the animals.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you got that, Philip?
I think that's by default, just by operation of law. If he can't meet the conditions, then.
Yeah. Okay. Just want to cover the bases here. It's difficult. It really is. This is one of the most difficult cases that I've seen come across this commission since I've been on it. It's emotional, heart-wrenching situation that thank God they don't come along that often. And I sincerely hope that Mr. Poole gets the assistance he desperately needs, and that the benefit of both him and the animals can be positive from this point on. So we're giving them an avenue to go. We're trying. So, Phil, if you want to read that back to us, I'm sorry. I know it was a lot of back and forth, but I see you taking notes. And if you want to read.
Yep, the recommended motion that we don't have a motion yet was that the return of the animals, they should be returned with the conditions that the dogs be housed at the SPCA within 4 days of the chief's decision, that Mr. Poole must follow the SPCA's recommendations for the care of the animals, and that if the SPCA is unable to take them from animal control, that they not be returned.
Does that satisfy everyone?
Yeah.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to accept that?
I make a motion that we adopt a decision as read by Mr. Hall.
I'll second it.
Read and seconded. All in favor? Yes. Okay, I sincerely hope that that goes well. Okay, before we close, does everybody have a copy of the minutes from the past meetings?
Those should be in the drive for today.
They are.
Just want you to everybody take a look at them and know what we're going to vote on, whether to accept them or not. They're rather self-explanatory. After everybody's had a chance to look at them, I make a motion to accept the minutes. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Minutes for past meetings as documented have been read. And I guess our next, what's that?
I just need everyone to all in favor.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Abstain.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm still praying inside my head. Okay. I guess our next meeting will be later in September. What is that, the 12th or the 15th? 12th?
Do we have a holiday on the 5th?
Yeah, we got Labor Day.
Oh, that'll do it. It looks like it will be the 12th then.
Okay. All right. Okay, with that, is there any more business before us today?
Just adjournment.
Okay. Then I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you all.
Second.
Seconded.
All in favor this time? I got it right. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks,
Thank you all
Robin.
so much.
We really hope this works out, Robin. We
Yeah.
really do.
Yeah,
All of us do.
I really do. It's just heart-wrenching, heart-wrenching. I wish them all the best. You guys have a great week. I'll see you next month.
Have a lovely one.
Bye-bye.
Adios.